Hello, my name is Christopher Johnson, and I want to briefly introduce you to an idea that I've been working on for virtual memory. Virtual memory is an abstraction that sits on top of the physical memory of a computer and is designed to simplify the access of certain hardware memory devices. There are many different kinds of virtual memory. For example, there's the virtual memory associated with an operating system, where that virtual memory is designed to isolate applications from one another and to trick an application into thinking that it actually has more physical memory than it actually does. That the virtual memory system that I'm going to present to you is in no way designed to replace or displace that virtual memory. Okay, so the foundation of computer memory, indeed all of computational logic, is of course a string of bits, zeros and ones. But for my virtual memory conceit, I want to raise the level of abstraction to something I have decided to call the uberbit, or ubit, which is a logical aggregate of 4 bits, not necessarily 4 physical bits, but nonetheless 4 dualistic values that are collected together and which logically relate to one another. The reason I want to do this is because besides the true-false dualism, there are also 3 equally important dualisms, toggling either-ors, that in my opinion are just as important, and they occur in every single problem domain in computer science. And so that is why I want them incorporated at the lowest granularity of my virtual memory. Okay, so the first important dualism I want to discuss is static dynamic, where 1 would stand in for dynamic and 0 stands in for static. Whether we are talking about a pointer into memory, or we're talking about the value of a variable, or we're talking about the number of threads in a process, it really doesn't matter. I mean the programmer, the compiler, and the memory, all need to be in agreement on whether or not that value has the capacity to change, or will that value stay the same throughout a predetermined lifetime. It's an idea that can be found all throughout computer programming, and I want my ubit to be able to advertise this idea directly. Okay, so the next toggling dualism that runs very deep throughout computer science is stateful, stateless. 1 for stateful, 0 for stateless. Am I a variable or am I a function? Am I data or do I consume data? Otherwise known as read-write, otherwise known as input-output. To output anything is really the essence of what a function is for. A function can either transform your data or it can copy your data. That's pretty much it. It may seem like an oversimplification, but if you ask a programmer who uses a functional language like Prolog, they'll tell you that objects and polymorphism, patterns, etc. That is all just sweet syntactic sugar for talking about data and functions. And so that is why I want this idea as part of the ubit, and so there it is. And last but not least, there is transitive, intransitive, where 1 is transitive and 0 is intransitive. Am I in scope to that thing to my right, or am I not in scope to that thing to my right? Otherwise known as public-private, otherwise known as non-orthogonal-orthogonal. The underlying thread that ties all of these together is the idea of accessibility. Everything on the left is accessible or reachable, whereas everything on the right is unreachable or not accessible. Of all the different terms listed here, I think scope encapsulates the idea the best. And notice that I say, am I in scope to that thing to my left? I could have said to my right, I could have said up, down, it really doesn't matter. As long as I pick a vector and I stick to that vector, I can impose an ordering on these ubits and represent the idea of an arbitrarily sized collection of items in this virtual memory scheme. The importance of transitivity occurred to me when I was contemplating the const qualifier in C++, and the fact that the const qualifier is not transitive. For example, if you have some string in memory and you have a constant pointer to that string, the string can be modified, while the pointer itself cannot be modified. Although this is a perfectly reasonable situation to find oneself in, it is my opinion that C++ also needs the idea of a transitive const, perhaps called deep const, where the constness is transmitted to all indirections within a data structure. So if you declare a const qualifier, or a deep const qualifier in front of a class or a struct, everything that struct points to, all the indirections within that struct would also be const. With a transitive const, I think that certain optimization opportunities would present themselves in multi-core programming. The D programming language solves this problem by making the const qualifier transitive. So transitivity is a pervasive idea, and that's why I want it here as part of the U-bit. And the transitivity bit also is a bit of a workhorse in the sense that when the intransitive bit is set, in other words, it's 0, it marks unused virtual memory, but the intransitive bit also marks a logical separation between two used areas in the virtual memory, and I'll explain how that works in a little bit. Okay, so this is what a U-bit might look like in software, a structure representing 4 Boolean values, which are set to false in the constructor, and the garbage collector would be activated in the destructor. But the truth of the matter is that this is a terrible idea to do this in software. For one thing, a Boolean is not a bit. A Boolean is at least 8 bits. The reality is that if this was done in software, it would be too slow to be worth it. In fact, for this whole idea to even come close to being efficient, it would have to be actuated with specialized hardware and specialized processors specifically designed for manipulating and juggling the abstraction of a U-bit. So the fact that I'm sketching this out in software is just for demonstration purposes and should not be taken as a valuable thing to do. If this was implemented in software, it would move like molasses, so I want you to put the whole concept of efficiency, or the whole question of efficiency, on the back burner just for a little bit. But as a proof of concept idea, I'll just shove these U-bits into an array of bits, a bit set of size 8. The reason I'm storing the U-bit in 8 bits is because it turns out that 1 byte is the smallest amount of memory that a computer can actually allocate and point to. And so the next step would then be to just create a huge array of these U-bits, and that, in essence, is our virtual memory. The ultimate reason for this whole scheme is to create what I like to call a cognizant memory address space, a virtual memory system that is a little more self-aware of its place in the world. And another point I wanted to mention briefly here is that programmers don't usually deal with bits directly unless they want to drive themselves insane, so any abstraction that sits on top of this virtual memory will of course be automated. Any client that uses this memory will be automated and will be far removed from the actual application logic of the program. So I'm not going to be discussing the client that sits on top of this virtual memory except in regards to allocations. I want to keep this discussion all very simple, so imagine the client wanting to allocate some memory, some virtual memory, and so it just pseudo-randomly calls into this huge pool of U-bits. Colliding with used memory is detected very easily because if it hits a transitive, it means the U-bits are currently in use. So in this scenario, let's just say the client asks for 8 U-bits. There's a couple of subtleties involved. For example, not only is the allocator in charge of toggling the intransitives to transitives, but it's also responsible for making sure the used memory is not directly adjacent to more used memory, in which case it has to leave the very first U-bit intransitive. Either way, the allocator increments over by 1 U-bit, leaving it at its default setting of intransitive, and then it begins its allocation. When the client finishes counting out the U-bits it needs, it again has to check for if the desired memory is adjacent to used memory. It's always a possibility, in which case that constitutes a collision, and therefore the client would have to rewind and find another location. But I think the big payoff here actually might be the garbage collector, which becomes absolutely trivial because the garbage collector can now remain completely agnostic to the sizes of the virtual memory that's involved. So let's say the variable pointing into memory goes out of scope and the client no longer needs the memory, or perhaps the variable's reference count drops to 0. Either way, the garbage collector gets activated, which can be on its own dedicated thread, and it will just start moving down and toggling all the transitives to intransitives, marking it as unused. And for the sake of security, the garbage collector might also want to zero out all the value bits. I mean, after all, they're no longer needed, so why not? The beauty of the garbage collector is that it knows when to stop. It knows where the boundary is, thanks to the intransitive boundaries that are guaranteed to be there. And when the garbage collector finishes, the U-bits will seamlessly get absorbed back into the memory pool. It turns out that when the intransitive bit is set, there's always the possibility that the U-bit might be marking a meaningful boundary in this virtual memory. For example, here it's separating static data from dynamic data, and here it's separating dynamic data from a static function. And by the way, a static function can mean many things depending on the context. For example, in C++, a static function defined within a class definition means that all the objects of that class share that one function, but that is very far up in the abstraction tree. Here, at the low level of the U-bit, a static function will mark a function that has no side effects. In other words, it's a function that doesn't mutate the global state of an application. And also, a static function that manipulates static data, that is a function that can potentially be evaluated at compile time, all depending upon whether or not the static data somehow started off life as dynamic data, which is a somewhat complicated and subtle discussion that I'm not really prepared to have at this moment in time. But if we want to get serious about this virtual memory, we need a way to create transitive relationships with arbitrary complexity. In other words, we need to create scopes within scopes within scopes within even maybe more scopes, and we can't do that with just one transitivity bit. So let me introduce you to what a U-bit actually looks like. As I mentioned earlier, a U-bit is physically 8 bits, or 1 byte, because, as I think I may have mentioned, a byte is the smallest amount of allocatable memory. So it turns out that we now have 5 transitivity bits to play with. And better yet, unused memory can now be completely distinguished with all the transitivity bits set to 0. So imagine, directly expressed in virtual memory, a function that has a transitive relationship with these 3 pieces of data. A function bounded together with data. The red brackets on the far left and far right will have the exact same transitivity bit pattern set and will be different from the transitivity bit patterns signified by the blue brackets, which demarcate the data that's associated with the function. What this actually means is that the allocator that I mentioned earlier is a little bit more complicated than I let on, because now the allocator is responsible for making sure the transitivity bits are set appropriately, and that the demarcations match up and parse properly. So the allocator will be overloaded depending on the type of the allocations that are being made. Here's another example where one function is transitively bounded to some dynamic data, and we have a second function also bounded to dynamic data. Even though the data is dynamic, these 2 functions can actually run in parallel in a multi-core environment, and that's because the 2 sets of dynamic data have nothing to do with one another. They may be dynamic, but they're in totally different scopes, which tells the compiler they're completely independent of each other. All of this, of course, communicated directly through this virtual memory. Here's another example where the transitivity relationships overlap with one another. Function 1 is bounded to a bunch of static data, and function 2 is bounded to the same data. But since the data is static, the compiler knows that, again, these 2 functions can be run in parallel without any problems. Here's an example where our virtual memory demarcates 4 functions bounded together and which have a transitive relationship with one another, perhaps communicating the idea of a pipeline, where a pipeline is yet another situation that provides for its own unique opportunities for parallelism. But perhaps you don't need all those transitivity bits, or you don't want to use them. Maybe you have your own ideas on what a U-bit needs to communicate. The truth is, you can build your own virtual memory system, and you can make it as smart or as stupid as you want, all depending on your particular problem domain. Here are some possible toggling dualisms, either-ors, that you might want to consider incorporating. Parallel serial, synchronous asynchronous, encrypted unencrypted. The sky's the limit in terms of what kind of logic you want encoded in your virtual memory. Indeed, you can build many different kinds of virtual memory, all sitting side by side with one another and communicating with one another. Anyway, thank you for listening to this. My name is Chris, and goodbye.